Well, I'm back in the old Dominion, now the new Commonwealth of Virginia, and we have our elections this year. And it's good to be home on the trails I'm familiar with and the geography that makes me feel so comfortable. And no cars really on these roads, which is another difference, as beautiful as it is in Maine, where I was. I think one of the first issues that we should be considering is how Democrats are campaigning these days. They use Trump as a focal point in their rallies against the Republicans. They're doing it in Virginia against Youngkin. They're doing it in California against Elder, who's a popular radio host of the right-wing Variety. And apparently they're doing it in New Jersey too, which has a governor's race. What that does is it builds the Trump brand by associating his name with these policies. Instead of doing a classical campaign of associating the ideas with the candidate who's running and why that discredits him as a legitimate successor to name the election that you're in. Do parents want their kids not to have masks and not to be vaccinated? That's the issue. Do they want a woman in California to have the right to have an abortion? That's the issue. Do they believe there are racist problems in our criminal justice system? Should we do something about it? Do they believe there's paralysis in Washington and the governors are going to have to make up for what the national government can't do because the Republicans have stuck a stick in the wheels of progress? Those are the kinds of things that I think should be in a campaign. Now, it surprises me because Nancy Pelosi ascended to her positions of influence in the Democratic Party, starting in California, by the fact that she could tailor a message that was effective. And she was noted for that. And the Burtons and others who were kingmakers in California saw that and got her involved. And she just got better and better at it. And that and raising funds and then running herself. So this is not a time to change good tactics, because if you build Trump and then one of these people win, you politically inform every consultant on the Republican side this is the way to go. Anyhow, so that's my thinking. It doesn't surprise me. This September 18th, we have a demonstration which I've talked about before, so I won't repeat myself, hopefully. But how these people got a permit is one of my repetitions. But their message is that the rioters are political prisoners, and they're calling their movement trutherisms. Now, because of the prosecution of the rioters, some of the allies of the insurrection are a little worried about becoming as involved as they were the last time. And so it may be safer, but it still strikes me as maddening that we allow these people to come in and to make that kind of statement, if it is to incite to violence, if there is violence. And I think it does matter what are the rules of engagement with the crowd should violence erupt, because this time they may come and think that they should be pushing it past that point. And we have to be concerned about whomever may have been responsible, and I believe people were, to withhold intelligence about the circumstance on January the 6th, that they may withhold intelligence about what's happening on September 18th. That said, there's social media talking about what's going to happen on September 18th, and that, if it's available to all of us, I don't know how law enforcement can say it's not available to them. Finally, in terms of, you got to watch the shell game that happens on the Hill. I'm talking about Manchin. Manchin has now said that $3.5 trillion is too much for him to support the Democratic budget reconciliation bill for that amount. Now, he's not said what he's also said about cloture, because it doesn't apply to that. A majority can send that vote to the president's desk in the Senate. That's why that process was used earlier for the stimulus package that Biden put together. So where do we stand? Well, it could be the following game. If you'll remember, Biden originally talked about his $2.2 trillion package. Then he encouraged a $1 trillion package, which has mysterious ways of paying for it, namely cryptocurrency, and borrowing from the stimulus package, which was for the pandemic, and I guess waving their hands and hoping somehow or other they could cross the divide by saving on, waste and fraud in our systems. I think that's nonsense. That bill is really properly endangered, or should be. But that's the one that is considered bipartisan. So let's go back. The $3.5 trillion bill has a couple of things. One is now Manchin and probably Sinema, the S&M team, she probably agrees with him, it's too big, right? And also, it involves taxing the rich, which may be the real reason that he's against the bill. Because who can be unhappy as a politician bringing pork back to your district, traveling up and down New England? I watched lots of roads where lanes were closed, where they were repairing. Lots of delays because of the condition of the road, and even in the localities. So it's that aspect of our infrastructure is certainly no joke. And there are other things, bandwidth is another thing that we've become more focused on because of the pandemic, particularly if you had a child who was doing different distance learning. You could see what was happening. So what we have is a $3.5 trillion proposal. What's going to happen to that? Well, it may have been planned from the beginning, since this is so much larger than what Biden originally asked for, which is $2.2 trillion, that the quote compromise will be to bring it down, and that will give cover to those people who thought this package was too big. I don't know, but that's one possibility. I still think from the beginning that this bill that should pass at $2.2 trillion or $3.5 trillion, if I were in Congress, I would vote for either version, that we should go forward with it. But I suspect in the end, like I said at the beginning of this turgid drama, that I don't think it will pass. And if it doesn't pass, then the political hot potato is passed to Pelosi, who has said, if that $3.5 trillion doesn't come over to the House, then I'm not moving on the $1 trillion bipartisan bill. I know it's a lot of talk, and it sounds like inside baseball, and probably it shouldn't be a factor in government. But why do they do this? They do this to fool us, because they figure nobody can follow the game and nobody knows what the hell is going on. And there's a lot of truth in that, including the players. So the end game, I think, is we spend a lot of time and effort on infrastructure, which is not going to happen. It's going to be a campaign issue instead. Yawn. And we will have done nothing about voting and nothing about racial injustice before the midterms next year, because everybody's going to start campaigning in the House, certainly. And they're going to have to pass the reconciliation packages, and they'll have a continuing resolution to keep the government open. So progress will be defeated by a calendar. So I say, I hope not. We can lean on them. They do hear that, and I think that's what we should do. All the best. Talk to you tomorrow. Good to be home. Bye-bye.